market. We give a round of applause for each one of our panelists when we bring them up. First, I'm going to call them in the order that we have them lined up here. Let's give a warm welcome to Khalid Al-Faleh. He's the Minister of Health and the Chairman of Saudi Aramco. Nice to have him here. And also the seminal book that I read, Understanding Energy, The Prize, Daniel Yergin. His Excellency, the President of Azerbaijan, İlham Əliyev, joining us here on center stage. Dr. Emmanuel Kachuku, the Minister of State for Petroleum for Nigeria, and the exiting rotating president of OPEC as well. A familiar face to the Emerging Markets Roundtable for CNN and back on energy, his specialty, Professor Linbo Zhang, the Dean of the Institute for Studies in Energy Policy at Xiamen University in China, of course. And Kirill Dmitriev, the Chief Executive Officer of the Russia Direct Investment Fund, a $10 billion fund which is now worth $25 billion even in a down market. Lots of attention and warm regard. Welcome, everybody. So what is going on with oil?
Good question.
Good question. Let's start with His Excellency the President. If I was going to ask you that we'd be testing $27 a barrel for the benchmark Brent, you probably would have thought I was drinking the wrong stuff and not water or a tea this afternoon. Tell us the surprise you have at the price that we're seeing today, and how do you plan for the future if prices are going to be going even lower than we see today, Mr. President?
Well, it's difficult to expect the price going lower, but having this situation today, we will not be surprised if it happens. Of course, we were not prepared for that. We in Azerbaijan were preparing ourselves for so-called post-oil era in about 20 years from now. Therefore, for us, it was a surprise, and at the same time, it was a stress for our economy, because we already planned our budget at a level of $50 this year and $90 last year. So we had to cut our expenses, our investments, and keep the social package in place. Our economy is stable and sustainable. We have large reserves in our sovereign wealth fund. Therefore, we can compensate this situation. But if the situation continues for longer, of course, it will be a big pressure on our budget.
Knowing the production situation as we see it today, or the overproduction that we see in the market, Dan Yergin, is this price justified today? We saw the IEA report suggesting an overproduction of about 1.5 million barrels a day.
Well, I think a founder, I think it was Royal Dutch Shell, in about 1915 was asked, what's the right price of oil? And he said, it's whatever it fetches in the marketplace. And so this is the marketplace that's saying this, but there is an oversupply, and the question of demand is overhanging at the same time. So there's two things coming together, and as you suggested, this is an unusual situation because the price of oil is walking arm in arm with the questions about the Chinese economy.
Good. Let's answer the big question, though, first, and I'll bring in Khalid Al-Faleh as well. What are you banking on as an average price for 2016, knowing the dislocation we're seeing in the first 3 weeks of 2016 here at Davos?
I don't think I would give an average price right now. So.
Okay. Do we have prices go lower?
Well, no. I think we're in a state. It's interesting now that if you look at both the
Khalid Al-Faleh, you have to plan for Saudi Aramco, needless to say. In addition to other plans you have for the group. What plans do you have for pricing going forward? It's a big question mark that people are wondering how Saudi Arabia plans with the strategy that it implemented.
Well, Saudi Aramco as the company and Saudi Arabia as the nation, we have the most resilient capacity within producers to take whatever the market serves us. If prices continue to be low, we will be able to withstand it for a long, long time. Obviously, we don't hope for that, but we're prepared for it. We have the lowest cost production in the planet by a big margin from our next competitors. Supposed to be set by operating costs. We don't hope for that. I think the market will need all producers in the long term. There is growth coming up, 1 million barrels or so at least, year on year, and that, of course, in addition to the decline of conventional and unconventional production that will take place. So in the short term, it's a very bleak picture with the overcapacity that you mentioned. But in the long term, I think we need current producers, and we need to invest in new capacity to be able to meet demand.
What would you suggest as an average price for 2016, knowing the dislocation we see today, sir?
I would not risk my reputation of and give a price. I do feel, though, that we...
As I mentioned in my opening comments, Russia has taken a very distinctive view here, try to produce as much as possible, nearly 11 million barrels a day in December. You're fighting for market share as a country. I know you run the sovereign fund here. What is the strategy to go all out to get what you can in this sort of price climate?
Well, first of all, I think we're not the only ones. Obviously, other players are going very much for the market share. And there is a trend that the growth of the economy requires half as much energy. Reuters, not my prediction.
That's not the Russian
For next
prediction?
year, not for this year, for next year.
For next year, I was going to say. That's quite a bet from 28 to 57.95. I wouldn't take that bet, by the way, at this stage. A couple of question marks that we raised here. Professor Lin, it would be good to get your thoughts about demand in China. Nobody seems to believe the growth scenarios that we see in China today, and whether realistically China...
But suddenly on 2014 is almost not there. Economy. When economy not good, and they come down a little bit, there's a huge impact on the energy incremental in China. So that kind of gap is possible. In fact, look at U.S. history, Europe or in U.S. or in Japan.
Leave this number of 6.8, 6.9%, even though it's the slowest in 25 years.
Well, the Chinese government tried to double the income by 2020. That's between 2010 and 2020. If that is the case, they have to maintain 6%.
Okay. And let's bring in the Minister of State for Petroleum from Nigeria. We had a chance to see each other in the UAE recently, and you had mentioned some of the pain that this low oil price is causing. How much dislocation is it causing in Nigeria when your break-even cost for production is about $30, $31 a barrel? Give us a sense how you see the pain applied to Nigeria at this stage.
Well, first, there are two areas of production. The low, more intensive, you would expect areas of diversification, collection of incomes, locally taxes. Only about 20-25% of Nigerians currently on the tax payroll. So with projects, review production, and see how we can get that done. Funding has been a problem. How do we address funding through alternative sources of finance? So bad news, but definitely opportunities on the upward side in terms of what you can do in the short-term period. But we're amongst those who are very optimistic that 2016 will end ultimately with a better price for oil.
Okay, you think it's going to be a better price? What drives that, a better price? Is this the washout in the U.S. shale production, or the higher cost projects being canceled, as Korea was suggesting?
Definitely U.S. shale is key. And if you look at the numbers that are coming off there, look at a place like Texas, for example, and what impact it's having, you begin to see that there's a lot of drop-off in terms of production there. Different from that, there's a natural decline anyway in production. If you do not invest to replace oil, you're going to have a natural decline, usually about 3 million barrels a day on the average. With the sort of investment approach you have right now, that is not being replaced. So you add that to the shale environment, and you add that to those anyways, the natural attrition that's going to happen in the marketplace. You're going to see quite a lot of barrels leave if things continue at this end.